Laura Kinney and Gabby are back in a brand new series called X-23, but with Tom Taylor off the title, does it still have the same fierce attitude mixed with fun? I'm Stan, and this is Detail Comics. What's up, everybody? This is iReviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should go back to the comic book shop for or not. In this video, we're going to be going over X-23 #1 from Mariko Tamaki and Juann Cabal. Taking the place of All New Wolverine by Tom Taylor, which became a fan favorite for many, this fresh take strips Laura of the Wolverine title and brings her back to her X-23 roots, except she is still the big sister of codename Honey Badger, who has a legitimate Wolverine named Jonathan as a pet. All the pieces are there for a fun but ferocious title. The only question is whether Tamaki can deliver on the promise. Why don't we hop into issue #1 and get a feel for X-23?
For those that were fans of Tom Taylor's All New Wolverine, where Laura Kinney actually took up the mantle of Wolverine instead of being X-23, it was probably a little bit disappointing to know that she was losing the Wolverine moniker and going back to being simply X-23. However, realizing that you're going to continue to get Gabby, aka Honey Badger, as well as Wolverine was probably a pleasant surprise. However, does Mariko Tamaki deliver on this kind of promise, the potential that Tom Taylor delivered in the original All New Wolverine series? And as we open up, we get a recounting of the history of Laura Kinney. As we see this kind of montage of her backstory, we also find Laura and Gabby jumping out of a window in hot pursuit of some people stealing mutant DNA. However, it doesn't necessarily feel too exciting. For something that is so breakneck and fast-paced as jumping outside of a window, everything feels slow. It doesn't necessarily have that kind of excitement that I was really expecting, and if anything, the decompression of the story tends to kill it a little bit. I mean, even Laura Kinney riding this person with a jetpack strapped to his back, smashing him down into the street, and letting him land inside a Fiat 500, it just doesn't feel as exciting as it probably should be. The action scenes and the elements with Gabby fighting against, Pistachio Band-Aid Man were a little bit drawn out. It felt a little too long, as if trying to pad the book for a page count was something that really mattered at this point in time. While the battle is beautiful, Juann Cabal did a great job with the actual characters, with the book itself. Although there were some backgrounds that seemed to lack a little bit of detail, he really delivered on a lot of the promise of these two characters, and I really like the way that he drew Laura, and Gabby just looks like a young kid that's out enjoying herself getting hit by trucks. So that's fun, as always. But as we're more than halfway through the book, we find that we finally make our way to Xavier's Institute. We get a really serious download regarding the actual mission that Laura's on. She's hunting down things regarding the regeneration powers, as well as specific Wolverine DNA, the attempt to create super soldiers using those things. That is her main focus. That is what is going to be her drive moving forward. But the writing of Hank McCoy, it just seems odd. It doesn't necessarily seem as sophisticated as he would normally be. While he is talking about science and those kind of things, it seems as if he's redundant. He's repeating himself within the same sentences, which makes the comic feel a little bit weaker overall. When you have one of the most intelligent people inside the Marvel Universe repeating himself constantly for Laura Kinney, who's just injecting simple things like, yes, you think, and thank you, Hank, it doesn't necessarily bode well for the overall progress of the story, which kills it because some of the best moments are between Laura and Gabby, where that kind of repartee, that back and forth, is really appreciated. However, once you step outside of these two characters, it feels a little bit more clunky in that respect. The art, again, is great. When the Stepford Cuckoos are introduced, their character models are very much on point, but when it comes to the conversations, it's really an emphasis on the jokes and not necessarily the seriousness. And again, decompression kind of extends scenes longer than they really should. The fist bump was a little bit funny, but it felt like the whole thing took way too long to get to where the finale was going. I mean, everything seems to center around the idea of a birthday or somebody being born or the kind of annual importance of this particular date without necessarily emphasizing the importance of the actual date. When we get into the Stepford Cuckoos, when we see these details, we actually see them going to this what appears to be abandoned church where they have kidnapped the person that Laura's going to be looking for. It turns out that as they're carrying out their plot, they pull out 5 cupcakes, which leads to the revival of Sophie and Esme to make the Stepford Cuckoos 5 in 1 again. And this is really, I don't know, it's kind of morbid. They look like people that had been stuck underground for quite some time, which, that happens to corpses. But we don't have a good justification to why they are going through such lengths to bring back their sisters. We're not sure exactly what the plot is regarding this. And everything seems to get lost towards the end. It doesn't really finish with any sense of importance. The only thing, the real key moment of the entire story happens within the last 2 or 3 pages, where, of course, Esme pulls out what appears to be some sort of vial, injects Sophie, and essentially murders her in the night, so that way she can find the power that she needs. While Laura says goodnight to Gabby. The relationships of clones playing against one another. One of combatants, one of competition, and one of kind of compassion, cohabitation. These are 2 different views on the same kind of problem. And that's where X-23 really ends. And I think I've said it throughout the entire review and recap of this story that the page count far outweighed the actual depth of the story. It felt like there were far too many moments that didn't necessarily need to be in here, and it would have hit a lot harder if we were dealing with 20, 22 pages of overall story. There's just not enough substance to support the kind of oversized issue that this really is to start off with in issue number 1. The other thing, a lot of people aren't going to necessarily find the mixture that Tom Taylor brought to the all-new Wolverine book that was really important to the Laura and Gabby dynamic, as well as their actions and adventures that really went along with this. Mariko Tamaki still needs to find her footing in this respect, but it's not doing anything to make me come back to it. I think that Juann Cabal is a great artist, and he's doing a really good job on this particular title. I really like the way that Laura looks. I like the way that Gabby looks. I like the way that the action looks. I think that it's a really dynamic style, but if you're just writing him extra panels and scenes in order to showcase his artwork, you're really doing a lot of the readers a disservice, because he could be utilized in a lot more action-packed and more fulfilling uses, rather than just kind of extending a scene with a fist bump or something along those lines. Overall, X-23 is a passable first issue, but it lacks a little bit of the interest that I got out of All New Wolverine number 1, and it doesn't necessarily make it any kind of must-buy for me. For diehard fans of X-23, I just suspect that you're going to stick with it a little bit longer, but I can't expect to pick it up next time it comes out. But I want to know what you guys think, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.